All right, everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us, please like, subscribe, share this show. Again, like, subscribe, share. We have the great one back from Europe, Steve Laffey, stevelaffey.com, former presidential candidate here in 2024, also former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island, former congressional candidate from Colorado. He's back in Colorado right now. He was over in Europe trying to heal the world, but apparently he didn't do too much of a good job of it. But Steve, it's always a pleasure to see you, and I'm happy to always see you and have you on the program.
Yeah, Rob, so great to be back with you. You asked the greatest questions. Let's roll. What do you got?
So, Steve, let's kick it around, just kind of going through some current events. But before we even get into that, you were in Europe a little earlier on in the year. Now you're back there again. Talk about how, when you go to Europe and go to all these countries, what are the people telling you over in Europe about what they're seeing in America right now? We have colleges in crisis. We have the Ukraine war. We have the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We have two demented people running for president of the United States. The list goes on and on. So I'll shut up and listen
Yeah.
and let you talk.
Well, one, I just came back from Paris and Amsterdam as part and Ireland a
Oh,
little bit, and also England. I was in Dover, but I didn't make it to London. So what really strikes you is how much foreigners, Europeans, middle class, upper middle class, whatever, follow American news. We and I still can't name anybody in the parliament unless Ben Johnson or somebody joined the parliament after being prime minister. We don't know anything about these countries, and they know everything about us. Now, if they dislike Trump, they dislike Trump. If they dislike Biden, they're sort of horrified at the fighting because they do still realize, and this is hard for people in America to understand, they do still realize that America is the world superpower and the leader of the free world. If you're in France, you can still visit a Churchill statue, something of an Eisenhower street. They're appreciative of the fact a long, long time ago now that we helped them out. So that's all true. But it is true that they know so much, and yet they're still getting their news from distorted sources also. So I spoke with a lot of people. In fact, I had a drive 6.5 hours with a wonderful guy from Amsterdam to Paris, door to door, simply because I did not realize all the trains could ever be full. There's 72 direct nonstops a day from Amsterdam to Paris. Couldn't get a seat the day before. Had to have a guy drive my wife and I. And so this guy Zane, he told me a lot of things that, he was very educated, spoke flawless English. That's the other thing. Most of these people speak incredible English. We gets back to our education system. Why did we start teaching Spanish or French in seventh grade still in public schools? What happened to first grade? They all start learning it in first grade. By seventh grade, we can't learn. I've been talking this for 20 years. It never changes. So, but there's a lot of positive feeling toward America in general. The stuff you read all the time. If you're rude to people, I suppose, and there are these ugly Americans walking around, you see them once in a while. But for the most part, in the hotels and walking and talking, I'll give you an example. I tried to get to the Arc de Triomphe, and it was closed, and I had a ticket, and I went to two policemen. And this is the same thing about Paris. I'm like, so what happened? Do I get in later? What do you think happened? I don't read any French. The police officer says something along the lines of, how do I say in English? He speaks fluent English. What do I say? And I say, strike. And he says, yes. So there was a strike that day by some workers. I stayed in France the next day because there was an air traffic controller strike.
wow.
They just strike anytime they want. And if you're getting ready to go to the Olympics, where you saw all the buildings being put up, all the stadiums being put up, right in these beautiful places, it should be beautiful. I imagine there's going to be a lot of strikes by French workers that say, how do I get the most money? I strike the day before the Olympics. That's going to happen. So if you go there, you have a real problem getting around, I suppose. But I really enjoyed my time, and I've enjoyed it all the way from, Albania, Greece, Athens, Rome, and now Paris and Amsterdam, where people are extraordinarily friendly. And I sense that they'd like America to have a stronger role without saying, like, we want America to take care of this problem. I think they'd like America to still be a very strong country because they realize that their defense against Russia and other problems rests still on American soil.
Yeah, no, listen, I always hear the mixed reviews, so I'm
Yeah,
grateful that you are telling the truth and being on the ground of what is going on and the thoughts. So I'm sure you've talked, obviously, you said you were in the car with this guy for, I think you said 6 hours.
6.5.
Reg
Yeah.
Regardless of that, when you're talking to these people, whether it's the guy that you and your wife were in the car with, or also just around town in Paris, in Amsterdam, England, wherever it may be, what are their thoughts on Trump and Biden as far as this rematch with, again, these two old men
They
that are
can't
just,
believe it. They can't believe it. They stand in disbelief that this could actually happen in America. We stand in disbelief as we do the show that this could happen in America, and yet it keeps happening. So they're in disbelief. They realize, everybody realizes Biden is too old, whether in America, whether they like him or don't like him, whether they're sort of, liberal or not. On the ship I took across the continent, I had far more conversations with Americans because I had 7 days at sea as I went from Fort Lauderdale through Bermuda all the way to Cork, Ireland, and I hung out with some people who are left of center. They're not Biden fans. They're just like, oh. I hung out with some Trump haters, some Trump lovers. They still are sort of in disbelief that there's not a 50-year-old, 60-year-old guy, lady that could really just help.
Steve, will
And
you get into any of these Trump and Biden people about your philosophy on America or what?
yes, I did. In fact, I
Oh,
told people, see, it's easy for me. I say, listen, I ran for president. I didn't get as far as go to stevelaffey.com and just Google my name. And then later on at dinner, you have people saying, I just watched like an hour of your stuff and they love it. And I said, well, that's the problem. You love it. I got nowhere. You know there's a problem. We're not doing anything about it. I only have one gear, and it's only geared toward a crisis where people will listen. But
yeah.
we couldn't find enough people to even get going. And yet, I would say things like, so Stanley Druckenmiller's got several $billion, and what does he do with the money? He agrees with me on everything. I've watched this guy. I've watched him on TV. He's probably a great guy. What does he do with his money? He doesn't give me $1 million in a pack. He puts $1 million into South Carolina for the former governor of South Carolina, who's going nowhere and gets her butt kicked in by Donald Trump. And then I'm saying to them, he probably feels like I did my job. Well, that was like throwing $1 million out the window. If someone had given me $1 million in a pack, I would have got, we wouldn't have won. We would have then raised some more money and got 15% of the vote in New Hampshire. And then maybe we're situated for 2028 as we have to get out of the race anyway, because it happened too late. I get it. But the voice could have been heard a lot more if people would have just said, we need a brand new voice. And maybe it's not mine. But other than me, there were just a bunch of retreads running. And I think the people on the ship realize it. The other thing you'll see on the ship is the resignation. I talked, hundreds, as you know, I talked to everybody who's sitting around, right? So we had days to do this. So out of 100 people, that I bet you 80 of them just resigned that it's going to totally suck in America for a number of years. Now, these people have money. They're on vacation. They're retired. So they're just not in a position to say, and I'm going to get back into the game or whatever game they were in and help. So it's really sad to watch all this, Rob, in a sense, as people are resigned to what's about to happen, maybe happening a year later than I thought it would last year, where the debt is just simply too big for America to handle. But there isn't anybody who doesn't know that. There isn't anybody who would say, what are you talking about? We don't have that much debt in America. The national debt, 30 trillion. What? That's not that big of a deal. $1 trillion in interest, not a big deal. Nobody says that. They all say, what are you doing? They know I'm an investor. They're like, what are you doing about it? And I say, well, I'd rather not, because I can change my mind tomorrow when I talk specifically about things. But they're sort of resigned to it actually happening, like cross the Rubicon into disaster. It's happening. I'm going to be okay. For example, they're like, I own a couple of homes or I own a big home. These are people who have made it, right? And they're not that concerned about the younger people. They're just not. And that's really the crime that I talked about in the campaign. And I would tell people, you've got to, but they don't seem to really care to do something about it. That's the
Well,
sad part.
and just to interject, I know you were speaking about this during the campaign about Vanguard, State Street,
Yeah.
the national debt. Obviously we are, really declining as far as home ownership for a lot of younger people, the interest rates, the mortgage rates, the
Hmm.
list goes on and on. You were speaking about this stuff. I know you're not a fan of RFK Jr., but as far as a person that, again, as I stated, I have to vote for somebody.
Yeah, I
And
get it.
and,
I get it. I
and
can't
he's the
vote for
only
the
one
other
that's
two.
talking against Vanguard, State Street, and
Yeah,
these companies, talking about Gen Z and millennials not being able to own a home because of the
yeah,
mortgage rate, which is going to go up again. They're
yes,
talking about,
yeah.
and obviously the national debt. And again, the Gen X's, they honestly don't really give a crap about people my age and younger.
They do
And
not.
that's the way the cookie is crumbling in our
Yeah,
country. And again, whatever you want to think about his issues on the medical side, we need to get somebody that's talking somewhat like you were, Steve, during the campaign. And
I
he is
agree.
the only guy that's speaking about these issues where Trump and Biden, they're just having a bitch fest at
Yeah,
each other.
yeah.
And
I mean,
it's like
yeah,
a kindergarten. It's like when I was at CJCI, the two bullies fighting each other and on the
yeah,
recess
they
near
really are.
Garden
It's
City.
it's a total clown show, and Trump's starting to do things that will ultimately, I think, make him win the race. And things are happening in the country that are so disgraceful. It's whether it's what's happened at Columbia University, the violence in the country, high real interest rates. I mean, what is Biden trying to do to get younger people vote? Legalize pot, forgive student loans. These things are all young people really don't vote as much. So these things are all a sideline. There is really nobody talking about the monetary policy of the Fed and as making it a large issue. That was my large issue, that the Fed should keep inflation at zero and do nothing else. And then eventually we can get rid of the Fed. But that would be the first step. And witnessed how clueless the Federal Reserve is. They've made one after the other bad decisions, said things that are totally false, and always are looking backwards at evidence that came in months ago to make decisions for the future. And there's no one really talking about that. It's very sad. I don't know when they will. I think they will, because when the crisis really comes. So, how do you have rates not be, when I talk about real rates? So let's say inflation goes down to zero, and I think that could happen. How could 10-year bonds ever go back to one or two? They'll still stay at four or so, because investors are going to now want a higher real rate for the risk that they're taking. I don't know if people have watched this, but when you talk in economic terms or finance terms, you always talk about the risk-free rate, which is the 10-year or the 1-year United States Treasury. And every investment is off that rate. So a AAA bond, if the 10-year Treasury is at 4, the AAA bond by whatever company's left with AAA bond rating would be 4.1. Double A 4.2, triple C going down to almost bankruptcy 10. Today, Apple Computer borrows at less on their 10-year bonds than the US government. I said this would happen about 10 years ago. I said it publicly that there's going to be a time where the risk-free rate, I know Apple's going to pay me back. I know Lowe's is going to pay me back. I know the US government may not pay me back. So, and that's happening to the country. And this is why you're going to see a real recession and a real problem that we can't get out of unless we do something drastic about our debt. And that's what nobody's picking up on, because the answers are actually very serious. And in fact, there's no it's good to say, it's good to have a villain. I hate BlackRock. I hate BlackRock too, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They shouldn't have bought all those homes. I get it. Let's do something about it. I get it. That's at the cusp of the real problem. The real problem is if you take in $5 trillion of revenue and don't change the tax code, and you pay out $1 trillion in interest on the debt next year, we're totally hosed. That's the serious problem, because that's going to keep rising. Because Janet Yellen, the head of the Treasury, former head of the Fed, when she's a complete numbnut, she's completely out of her mind. She travels to China to talk about trade when she's not the trade representative. She's the head of the Treasury. Why is she in China? We don't know the answers to these people who are so stupid. And what she says is so dumb, but she decided to issue far more 3-month bonds than 10-year bonds back in that would have been November. So the stock market rallied. But that's the end of the game. When that starts happening, it means we're rolling that 3-month interest rate every 3 months. When rates were really low, she refused to issue 10 and 20 and 30-year bonds at 2 and 3%. And now They're 4, 5, and 6. So everything rolling off from zero from 10 years ago is rolling back on at 4.25. So this interest rate hike in interest payments in the debt is going like this, and it's never going to stop now. And what's the solution? I'll give you some solutions. You wake up one day, instead of getting 5% on your 10-year note, everybody gets 1%. You're like, what? What? I'm like, no, that's going to happen. Something like that has to happen. There's no way to collect, instead of $5 trillion in a $25 trillion economy, $10 trillion to make that number normal, even if we taxed all the rich people who then would live in the country.
Yeah,
So this is
that's not
actually
gonna happen.
happened. This is the real story, Rob, and it really destroys especially younger people who can't get ahead to get their home, who can't get ahead to do their life.
Yeah.
This is
The
happening right now
the
in front
the,
of our face.
the taxing the rich is just cult-like talk by the left. That's never gonna
Yeah,
happen.
no, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen now. Do I want a different tax code? Do I want a fair tax, a flat tax, or Herman Cain's 999 plan? I do.
Yeah.
Why? We'll collect a lot more revenue. It'll still be slightly progressive, but mostly flat, right?
Mhm.
And we can, and then what we can do with that, we're going to be taxing a lot of illegal aliens, a lot of stuff that goes through
Yeah.
the underground economy. Got to be 20%, but they still buy bubble gum in large boats. So we got to so we can get money there and still have it. And I think a fair tax and a flat tax or whatever is much more fair than what we have today. People like me figure out the whole situation. Rob, when a couple of years ago, I bought an electric car because I got 7,500, I got $10,000 or
Yeah.
something like that from the feds in the States. I bought that for effectively $29,000, that RAV4 Prime. I sold it for 50 as a used car a year and a half later. I figured this stuff out. The average person's working their ass off every single day and can't figure it out. I went to Harvard Business School. I'm the one who figures this out. I know when to buy silver and have the average person over in that
Right.
house. They can't figure it out. It's not their job. They got to go to work. They got 2 kids. They don't know what the hell's going on with the drugs the kids might be on, why they're not learning in public school. So it favors people who have made some money. And that's why the middle class has been destroyed.
I just want to bring this up because when we talk about all the financial issues with the debt and the deficit, and also the inflation issues, and the country keeps spending as far as was in Ukraine. We're giving more money to Israel, Taiwan. They just passed that aid package a couple days back. Obviously, we're printing. The deflation of the dollar is really coming on strong. My question to you is this: as a person that's involved in finance and has been involved in politics also, are you saying that for my generation, Social Security's gone,
Hmm?
Medicare is gone,
Hmm?
Medicaid for poor people is probably gone, and a lot of other social services cuts they're gonna be extremely cut, or they're gonna be gone also? Because
They're going to
that's
be
the way it seems it's
they're going to
going.
be extremely cut. In other words, so let's just take Social Security. $65 trillion in arrears, twice the national debt. It's a bigger problem than that. That's why I made it my number one issue. I put forward a way to fix it and have the liabilities go to zero over 20, 30 years. Not tomorrow. Exactly what I did as mayor of Cranston. We had a
Yeah.
250, these are much smaller numbers, but we had a pension plan that was funded a 3% funding ratio. 3%. Never heard of one. No one's ever heard. That's why the bond rating was the lowest. So we fixed it. The liabilities are going away over a long period of time. And that way the bond market for the city of Cranston said, oh, then Cranston can survive and thrive. Okay, we did that. Same thing for Social Security. If we took on one of these issues and then took on Medicare after that and fixed it, and by fixed it, I mean, Rob, you're younger, you're going to put in X% of your income and you own the account. We don't it. We're going to make sure you don't take it out like those IRAs when young people switch jobs. But you die at 10 years from now, your heirs get the money. You marry somebody, you put half and half in, you get divorced. I hope not. Whatever happens, you keep half, she keeps half, right? So then you get to be 60 something. Now we've invested everything in a worldwide basket of stocks and bonds for 40 years from you. You're going to get 5 times what I get if we did this. I'm going to have to contribute to it because I'm older. If we don't do something like that, and we're not going to, in about 7 years, there's only 2 solutions. Checks get cut for existing retirees by 35%, never happening. But, or along the way, you're doing well. Your listener's doing well. They're not just making 150 at the max or whatever it is today. They're making 300, and they're paying another 12% on that extra 150 they're making over the cap today because there's no cap. What the Democrats will do, and Republicans will join them, they'll put, right now the cap is 150. They'll say, oh, there's a little donut hole. If you make between 150 and 500, we won't tax that. Over 500, we'll tax the really rich people. And then 10 years later, they'll tax everybody. And
Yeah.
guess what? It still doesn't solve the problem. So the only other way out of the Social Security problem is to keep inflation going higher, change the adjustments for Social Security, and they're doing that for young people. You won't get the same adjustments I got as I was working. So you'll get that $2,000 check that I would get at 62 or 3,000, whatever it is, per a month at 62. It'll just be like $200 40
Right.
in real terms. It'll be $200 40 years from now for you. You'll get nothing.
Right.
But they'll say it's $2,000, just what we told you. Just the dollar will go down.
Right.
Those are the only answers that they have. There's no other answers for these people. Screw the poor, screw the working class, screw the affluent young person who's doing great. And let the old people take 7% of GDP extra out of the young people and hope they don't notice. Here's the tragedy. Young people don't seem to notice. They seem to be like all over Columbia University talking about how they love Palestinians, who are like subhuman people who everybody's kicked out of their country, who have nowhere to go, who live in an open air prison because the Egyptians don't want one single one of them. They nearly destroyed Jordan. They got them out of there after they killed somebody. They went to Lebanon, the Christian country you might remember from the 1980s. They destroyed that country. We put them all in this open air prison, and then Israel pays no attention, so they murder and rape Israelis, and now we have a war. That's why wouldn't we just take bulldozers and push them 5 more miles into the ocean? I mean, this is unbelievable what's going on. That's what young people seem to care about. Divest from Israel. Does anybody look at Israel?
Well, listen, Steve, there's a lot of brainwashing in the colleges. I mean, I was
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Obviously, you have kids there, and I'm sure they tell you all kinds of crazy stories. I was very much brainwashed to the left. We talked about this. I used to be
Yes.
very far to the left, Bernie Sanders guy. Throughout COVID, I woke up, I saw the light, saw what the government was doing, the propaganda machine that's been going on in this country years upon years on
Yes.
end. You finally get to see the light when you're working hard and you're not making enough to live, or you're working hard and they're
Right.
taking tons of money out of your check. For me, that's kind of what happened. And
Or
also,
if I'm your dad,
right,
then
right.
you go to college, you know exactly what's going on.
Right. Well, I want to interject this, Steve,
Yeah.
because, and not to go down a conspiracy theory realm, but there's all these fighting, like, for instance, just going back to the 2010s with the Occupy Wall Street that happened
Right.
Before the 2008 crisis. There was supposed to be people that were they were pushed into those protests by the FBI and CIA as far as infiltrate. Again, I'm not trying to go down the hole here, but who's to say that the government officials in the FBI and the CIA are trying to push these protests because they don't want the people to see what the hell is going on in this country, as far as what we've just been speaking about with the debt in the deficit, with the looming healthcare crisis due to COVID-19. The list goes on and on. People losing their homes, they have their jobs are not paying enough. So we could go down the list here. So this is kind of a good crisis to have people looking the other way while you got your hand in the cookie jar and are stealing all the money, and the other people are looking at the flashy object while you're, again, stealing the money. I don't think that's too far-fetched, and I don't think that's conspiracy theory.
No, I think I don't know if the CIA involved, but the truth is the massive media in our country who didn't want me to be on TV, for example, banned from Fox News, continually banned from Newsmax, has Trump watch me and then go back on a couple of weeks later because they like me and so forth. But yes, they like this shiny object over there, the media, for sure. And they do not want you to focus in on the real problems. They refuse to. That's why there's like a 1 minute news cycle, a 1 hour news cycle. we never have a news cycle. If I ran Fox News, which they would never let me do, we would just do Social Security for months. And we have people come on, we would never change topics and we'd bring people on and say, Lindsey Graham, you're talking about what? You're a complete numbnut. He wouldn't come on after a while. Be like, we just do Lindsey Graham talking about stupid things, Tim Scott talking about stupid things. Meanwhile, they've been in office for how long? What? And I would do things like, what's their net worth? How did Biden get to be this much when he only worked in the government for his whole life? How's he worth 10 million? Really?
Nancy
We would just,
Pelosi in the stocks.
if I had a channel, that's all we do. That's all we do. Now she's married to a very wealthy guy, so she'd be the exception in a sense. But you've got a good point about the fact that the shiny object is over here. And look what they have young people focusing on. For example, I was about to say, divest out of Israel. Go to a map, take a look at how small it is. How much would it matter to the Vanguard Worldwide Fund if they weren't in Israel? It wouldn't matter at all. Now, it's wrong to get to divest from Israel. I mean, you would try to divest from Palestine, whatever you want to call this place. Of course, there are no investments there. They destroy everything. So that's the better question. So if we want to divest from Israel and where the Palestinians live, are there any investments in where they live? No. Have they ever invented anything? Has anybody in an Islamic country ever invented anything in the last 100 years? Do they have any high tech that we could? What did Iran do? What does Iraq do? What do all these countries do that have that worship Islam? What's their real growth rate?
Well, they have oil. I mean, to be fair.
Other than oil, they got, think about it. Saudi Arabia's taken that oil and they've invented nothing. They've got nothing. They took that oil and they worked really hard to get. No, they didn't. They just took the oil, give it to the citizens who walk around and call themselves sultans. That's all they do. It's a total disaster. So I think you're right. And I think young people, it's hard to believe. Like, look at Colombia as we're speaking today, yesterday. It's beyond you at UCLA. These things are beyond anything you could imagine. Anybody.
And who's to say that the people that are crossing the border, Steve, are not involved in a lot of these protests?
Well, they are. They are. No, not all of them, but certainly people are crossing the border who are professionals,
right?
Mixed in, and they're getting there. And their job as communists, let's just call them not progressive anymore, communists, to bring down America. So what's happening in these universities? And this is where they make a mistake. They're not going to get ahead doing this, but they can't help themselves. They have to go do this because then we can watch Biden say nothing, and then Trump wins the election because of it. Because the only thing Republicans really have going for them is how ultimately stupid Democrats are to show what they really believe and to placate not their old workforce, the John F. Kennedy people, not Robert Jr., the John F. Kennedy work people, the union guys who are always Democrat, guys who worked with my dad as a toolmaking industry. They're going to Trump, and they keep doing it, and they're so dumb because there aren't enough progressives that even vote.
Well, because they're worried about the transvestites, they're worried about DEI, all this nonsense, gobbledygook BS.
In the last year, or on the ship that I was on, or in Europe, how many transvestites did I meet? I met zero. I have not seen a transvestite. Now, I guess I could watch a movie or go on YouTube and see one. I just don't see them walking down the street. But according to the Democratic Party, they're everywhere. They're right? Wait, how many people have had sex change operations as a percentage of the population of the United States before the age of 20?
It's probably less than 1%.
In Colorado, it's several hundred. So I live in Colorado. So I've never met one, knowingly. But you know what? According to the Democratic Party, they're everywhere. 5 million people, they think it's 4 million people have had sex change operations, which means there wouldn't be any people left in about 20 years, right? Or 40 years, because no one could have any babies. So this stuff that they come up with is so preposterous as major issues. Certainly we want people to be treated well. We want people not to be made fun of if they have different religious beliefs or gay or whatever. We don't want anybody to be made fun of, but these aren't the real issues. Yet, if you turned on a Democratic channel or got emails from Democratic people, that's all they talk about, as if those are the issues. So they can't focus on any of this stuff. And then you have the Republicans who are like, we got to stop the spending, except when we're in office. Or if Trump's the president, we're going to spend even more. Trump has no way to stop the spending. He wants, because listen to what Trump wants when he gets to be president. He wants, quote, some of those negative interest rates. He's out of his mind. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody say. People love to support Trump. He personally cost you all 2 U.S. senators in Georgia,
Right.
every election since, with the stupid things he kept saying.
Well,
I
not even just that. Look at what happened with the CARES Act. That was the biggest redistribution of wealth in the history of the country.
yeah,
We had the CARES Act and all the debt that was raised in that short period of time
yeah,
due to these, all this money, the
the
stimulus
PPP program,
packages.
the PPP program that Trump signed off.
Right.
And I said, this is the biggest.
Everybody's getting a PPP loan. I know a guy that got a PPP loan that he runs a YouTube show. A YouTube show.
Listen, there's like 7 or 8 congressmen who got him too. So this thing was, now they think there's at least 20,000 cases of fraud. And yet, think about it. If you and I ran a company and we did something like that, like the guy who ran Hertz, he wanted to have all the electric cars. Remember? I'm going to have all the electric cars. And Jim Cramer's like, you're the great leader. You're bringing these into electric cars. So what happens? The year goes on last year where people are renting electric cars, don't know they even have electric cars, run out of electricity on the highway. They smash them up way more because they hit the gas and they go faster. They can't fix them because nobody can fix the electric cars. It's way more expensive. The guy at Hertz gets fired over it because he's got to sell all the electric cars. Well, at least he got fired. Who got fired from the PPP program?
Nobody.
They all got reelected. Look who voted for it. The Republican senators of South Carolina. You could go on all day, but Trump loves it. They should all be banned from public office, right? But no, you walk down the street. I got a MAGA hat on. I'm loving it. What are they? What made America great? I'm a conservative guy. Thanks for the judges. What else? As I said, when I ran for president, I'm like, listen, I can go to the same list as 17 people left out of the 20. It was pure marketing genius. And he kept his word on it. I get it. I can appoint 3 of the 17 left. I'll do that. How hard is that? There's Joe, there's Jimmy, there's Susie. I can appoint conservative judges. You can do it with me. We could sit around in a room as long as we don't get the former governor of New Hampshire back in the day who came up with that Souter guy, right? As long as he's not with us to tell the President Bush. Remember that? You're too young to remember this, but that's how we got Souter. Bork didn't go through. He got borked.
Right. Yeah.
And then they said, what's the Sununu, the old Sununu?
Yeah.
He's like, Mr. President Bush, guess what? We got a guy no one's ever heard of. He must be really conservative. He lives in a log cabin in New Hampshire. I'm from New Hampshire. We appoint him. He's a liberal. We can avoid that. I can do that. Sununu was a liberal. It's the dumbest thing Sununu ever came up from. I saw the son. I didn't bother to bring it up to him. I should have. Anyway, his son's a nice guy too. But what do they all do? Sununu hates Trump. Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, nice guy. I had a nice chat with him on Labor Day. You can watch the video of it. And what does he do at the end? I'm never supporting Trump, never supporting Trump. Oh, I'm supporting Trump. Right? So they all fall in line because they care about their political future. I'm the only guy you can have on who doesn't really have one because he doesn't care about it. And that's why I'm sitting here, I suppose. And it's because these people all will do whatever they have, dirty pictures on these people. I don't know. They'll all fall in line at the end, whether they want to or not.
Well, they did a podcast with Tucker Carlson, and he said I have mixed reviews on Tucker Carlson, but regardless of that, he said on Joe Rogan, he said that they have all kinds of dirt and on these, and a lot of these politicians are worried that one day they'll be running for re-election, and then kitty porn will come up on the computer,
I think he must be right.
They're dead.
I think you must be right. You know, the kind of people we like, for example, take Larry Hogan. He was the governor of Maryland, sort of a liberal Republican governor, and they think he did a pretty good job. I have no idea. He joins up with no labels. And I guess they just don't realize that since the age of 22, Larry Hogan's done politics. Swoop. Never anything else. Me, I go out to the business world as a poor kid. I make enough money to not work again. Then I try to fix a city. Okay. I gave back. I wasn't in the military, whatever. Then I do other stuff. And so far, I haven't been elected, but I don't have to be. But what does Larry Hogan do? Wait a second. To benefit me, Larry Hogan, I could run for the U.S. Senate as a Republican. Buy no labels. Boop. Bye. They all left. Boop, 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 because they all got pressure put on them. If you want a future, you better get your ass out of no labels, for example. And they did. Manchin did. Manchin, him and Huntsman, they're going around. They're saying nothing. They're in New Hampshire. Don't let me speak at St. Anselm's College. Let these two clowns speak. And then what do they say? Play the tape. They say nothing. Do they have a specific plan to fix Social Security, to save the national debt, to do something about the procurement process for the military? I could go on all day. They have nothing. They're just like, these two parties are really bad. And then what do? Do they run? They don't run. So that's the world we live in. Complete sycophants, people who just do this for a living, politics. And this is what the American people have elected.
It's like professional wrestling right now. That's what it is.
That's a good example.
Wrestling.
That's a great. By the way, I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal. I'm going to tell them I got it from you. I use the cartoon, the coyote fighting with the sheepdog, but professional wrestling is better because these guys sometimes wear a mask and they're the evil guy. Then sometimes they go, when I was a kid, they go to another part of the country, take the mask off, they're like the friendly guy, right? And then they fight each other, and sometimes the other guy wins, but then they do the fake backflips, but they're supposed to be fighting. That's what's going on. It's professional wrestling. And that's, I mean, look at Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, two U.S. senators out of, both have run for president out of South Carolina. They're evangelical Christians like me, never been married, 60 years old. How many evangelical Christians have I met who didn't get married? None. This is the way of the world for politics. And I saw it, in fact, I haven't told some of these stories, but I saw it talking about churches and supporting Trump and how bizarre it is. I mean, the guy Vandermet, who runs basically the conservative side of Iowa, very important guy.
Right, Vanderplatz, yeah.
Vanderplatz, I'm sorry. He's a nice guy. I spoke to him on the phone. He's having a Christian gathering. This is the beginning of the campaign. He was nice enough to speak to me. He wouldn't let me come and be interviewed by the guy you just mentioned. The guy who left Fox News, the guy who
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson. And yes. So I said to him, listen, let me get this straight. I'm actually an evangelical Christian. You have an evangelical Christian event. And you're going to let Mr. Ramsawamy come, who's a practicing Hindu. So he gets to say that Jesus is just a prophet in front of everybody, and people are going to clap. Well, Steve, I'm paraphrasing, well, Steve, I don't know what to do. I said, well, why would he come? Like, he's not going to be the nominee, and he wasn't. He's going to spend his own money. I get it. But he's not a Christian. Why wouldn't you let Christians come so we could answer some questions? And I answer them a lot better. You go fast forward to me in New Hampshire, go to a Christian church, right? And I go on a Sunday, church is crowded, watch the guy speak, walk up with my Bible afterwards, say to the pastor, I'm Steve Laffey, I'm here, I'm running for president, I'm living nearby, tell him what I'm all about. And he looks at me, why would anybody do that? So no help, no nothing. You could tell stories like this. This is how, what I view the Christians are making apologies for Trump rather than standing strong about what the issue should be. I find very bizarre. But I'll give you an example. I think it was a New Hope church somewhere in outside of Salem. And my guy made an appointment. We know that Ramsawamy, practicing Hindu, spoke on Sunday morning at the church, big church, evangelical Christian church. My Caleb gets back to me and says, well, he wants to have it on Tuesday evening. He'll invite the whole church. You'll be there. Okay, great. So we go. We check in the Friday. Guess what? Never told the parish. Nobody came. There was nobody there. No one had any idea. So guess what I read later in the New York Times, about 4 weeks later, an article in the New York Times about Christian pastors in New Hampshire who backed Trump. Guess who's the biggest one mentioned? That guy. What did he obviously do? Obviously said, you can't have Laffey speak. I'd rather have the Hindu speak on Sunday morning. Can't Laffey come. He hates Trump. So he just doesn't invite people even. So he lies. Like he didn't forget. So this is what people do. All throughout the United States of America, whether in politics or in churches, people have sold their soul
Yeah.
to get ahead, whatever
Well,
that means to them.
well, to get ahead, but it's also to be Trump's buddy.
Yes, that's yeah. To them, to that guy, getting ahead didn't mean real money. It meant being Trump's buddy. To Ramsawamy, he ran and said, Trump is a great leader and I want to be president. Trump's a great leader and I want his job. Who, who would ever do that? Did you ever see a race where people are like, and which gets back to me on Newsmax one Sunday morning. I'm going off on Trump about the deficits or whatever. And you can watch it at stevelaffy.com. You probably have watched this, Rob.
Yeah.
And the guy looks at me and he stops and he says, Steve, why aren't you going after Biden? And I say, because I'm in a Republican primary. And the guy's face goes like, hmm. He all of a sudden goes, that guy's right. Like everybody who'd come on had been attacking Biden, whether it was the former governor of, South Carolina, whether it was everybody was attacking Biden,
DeSantis.
except I'm attacking the right guy, the guy in the lead, who I want to beat. And he doesn't, until I say that, he doesn't know. He's never heard that before. But I'm doing normal things, and yet you have the sycophants. I mean, Mike Pence, who I met on Labor Day, is a really nice guy. Mike Pence had one chance when he got ready to run. And here's what he should have said. And I'm not saying it would have made a difference. He couldn't talk about January 6th. Give me a break. He had to say something like, listen, the guy named me vice president. And for 4 years, Pompeo, partially Bolton, myself, and a couple of the people tried to hold things together because the man's a crackpot. I couldn't really say as vice president, he's a crackpot. I couldn't really disagree with him every day. Vice presidents don't do that. So I had to say what I had to say. But the man is a crackpot, a complete narcissist. And here's what I'd like to do. Instead, he got up there and talked to the people of New Hampshire just before me, spoke before me in this big speech. And he said that he thought, quote, he still thinks it's morning in America again, end quote. I don't mean, like, so I get up next and I'm like, and you can hear it. It's on stevelaffy.com. I say something like, hey, if you think that's okay, what people like, you're not going to like what I have to say. And I basically go to say, hey, listen, folks, it's the bottom of the ninth. We're down by 4 runs, right? There's 2 outs, and Rivera just showed up to throw a cutter. That's what's going on in America. And people, here's the thing, people are nodding. Like, they know I'm right. Everybody, I'm not saying things people know is not true. It's just that after that speech, for example, the guy who worked at the Federal Reserve Board in New England for like 40 years came to see me. Big, tall guy. He's like, laughing. I never heard anybody like you. Your facts are all correct. No one else says the exact numbers. Everything you said about it's all correct. Here's my problem. The guy to my right, the guy to my left, they're not willing to do any of this. They're not. And I said, I know. That's why I won't be in the race forever. I thought they might, but the crisis really didn't come because the banking crisis was stopped.
Yeah.
Another year. And so therefore people are not willing to do that. But he says, you're right. I said, I know, I'm right.
So let's talk about the banking crisis. How long do you think this prop up will last? Because they are propping this up.
Yes,
I know you're not Nostradamus, you're not Jesus
no.
Christ, but I'm just saying you have some sort of idea.
Yeah, it could be another year. It could be after the election. I will guarantee everybody this one thing, though, that I truly believe. The 2028 presidential election will only be about the debt. What happened a year ago when some banks started to go broke because they mismatched assets and liabilities and they should be in jail, and the San Francisco bank regulator who ended up just retiring. Remember, the guy regulating it in charge never paid any attention. So these people, when rates were zero, bought 30-year bonds to make a little extra money, and they went upside down when rates rose. Because like a lever, when rates rise, this 30-year bond way out there loses the most amount of value, right? And the 3-month bond doesn't really change too much over here at the elbow. So they put it off, and now that they backed up all the loans, and remember, they backed up all the loans. Instead of to go through what really should have happened, even with those banks, everybody with over $250,000 in a bank, the real way to handle it is that you get a credit card to go to the Fed when it's all over. Like, you don't get any money. You're insured to $250,000, you, me, everybody else. But like Roku had, I don't know, $400 million in a bank or something so stupid you can't believe who was in charge of their cash management. So they got all their money back. They should have gotten a receipt and they would have gotten $300 million back. Roku wouldn't have gone broke over it. But then people would have got the message that we won't be bailing them out the way you think we're bailing them out. Instead, the whole world has the message the US government, through the Fed or whatever, will bail every dollar out, which they can't do. Remember, FDIC insurance is like 0.5% of the assets. It doesn't, if there's one bankruptcy, okay. If there's 10, there's no money for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know when, but the banks are clearly still upside down because of what's happened with interest rates.
But does it also have to do with the commercial real estate crisis that is ongoing?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. The rolling off. I mean, for example, you own commercial real estate, you have no tenants. What do? You got to write these things down. Will vulture capital come in? Yes.
Yeah.
But these things are big losses, especially for the regional banks. So the regional banks are the most broke than anybody else because they make these type of loans. JP Morgan doesn't make that many. They might do a big commercial thing once in a while, but they don't do that kind of stuff. It's the regional banks that, say in Birmingham, Alabama, Regions Bank makes those type of loans. I'm not saying Regions per se is the one that's totally broke, but these problems are not going away because the whole problem with the banking system is that they're leveraged 15 to 1. That's just, or 10 to 1 or 12 to 1. Banks are really leveraged, which is why at stevelaffey.com, the fifth program we haven't mentioned was always about fixing the banks so that you didn't have to worry about it, Joe Blow, whatever. So it wouldn't be like in 08 where we bailed out the bankers. Who would care if the stock went to zero? Same thing with the airlines. Nobody would care. Airlines are regulated, but they bailed out the people, the CEOs. Jamie Dimon's a billionaire instead of worth zero because his stock would have went to zero. All those bank stock would have went to zero. They still would have been lending. The stock should have went to zero. And then we wouldn't have had this problem that we're going to have again because no one's ever really learned their lesson from.
But it's going to be worse than 2008.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's way worse. I mean,
are you talking about bank runs though, or no?
Well, it doesn't have to be bank runs, but when I say it's worse, the whole thing in 2008 was settled for $1 trillion. I'll make this number up. It's not really exactly right. The PPP program in 2020 was 800 billion by itself. Forget all the other stuff. Much bigger, 5 trillion, right? That's why the debt's so big. Trump, Biden did it. Now you're moving into a situation where take the CHIPS Act, where people are like, oh, wow, this is really good. I'm a Republican. I'll vote for the CHIPS Act. We'll bring back manufacturing to America. Well, folks, it's a very simple process. If you give people money and say, go build that, do they build really good things? No, they build crappy things. There's cost overruns, massive inefficiency because the government gave them the money, right? If you had just simply said, like I said back in the day in 2020 or 28, whenever this was happening, about to happen, I said, listen, there's an easy way to do this. You just require that by 2025, 40% of all chips used in computers and all used by the government are made in North America. Boom. We're the biggest economy. We're the strongest economy. We're the richest people. They would do it anyway. And then you say by 2028, it has to be 70%. And then and it can't be made in China, that kind of stuff. So that could have been the bill. No, don't do that bill because we get back to why congressmen get rich. They fund these bills. They either get money then, somehow through contributions, whatever it might be. They leave office and what do? They run something big. What did Nikki Haley do when she left office working for Trump? What was the first thing she did? Board member at Boeing. How much did she make? I'm guessing at least $350,000 a year. Then she made speeches. How much did you get per speech? I'm guessing she made 25. Janet Yellen did it when she was out of office, $100,000 to give a speech. Let's all ask the question. If you can picture or just Google or YouTube Janet Yellen and watch her talk, ask yourself if you would pay $1 to have her come to your home. You wouldn't pay $1 to see that buffoon come. She says nothing. She almost knows nothing. She seems to be senile herself. She's done such a terrible job that in the private sector, she wouldn't run, if you're in Rhode Island, Adele's lemonade stand. She is incompetent to do anything. Yet, why did they give it? She becomes this Treasury Secretary. So she's doing their bidding. Where did The chairman of the Fed, is he an economist? Did he ever take one economics course? No. What did he do? He worked at BlackRock. When George Bush the younger goes to get a Treasury secretary, where does he go? He goes to Goldman Sachs. He gets Hank Paulson.
Hank Paulson.
Who does Hank Paulson help when the crisis comes?
Goldman Sachs.
Sachs. He didn't help you. He didn't help you people.
Well, that's what's happening with the HHS, the FDA.
Everything. It's everything.
It's a revolving door.
And now get this. Private sector people now talk like we do live in a Mussolini fascist state. The guy who runs Cleveland Cliffs Steel Company, Nippon Steel, is trying to buy U.S. Steel. And by the face of it, who cares? U.S. Steel is a $5 billion company, not a $500 billion company. Dude, the steel plants, when Nippon Steel modernizes them, they're not leaving America. They don't take steel plants and put them on a ship. So if we want them back, we'll get them back. If we have become enemies with Japan, what does Cleveland Cliffs guy do? He says, because he tried to buy it at a lower price, he says, I know Joe Biden. He said, I'm not paraphrasing. This is what he says. I know Joe Biden, and he's not going to let this happen because he favors what I do, because I made a political donation and I'm with him. He literally says, I'm paraphrasing, this is what he's saying. He's saying, we're fascists. And by the way, pure fascism is simply a capitalist economy run by the top guy that you as a private corporation try to please when he wants you to do something. That's fascism. Just go look it up. So he's a fascist. And so, by the way, the Cleveland Cliffs guy has like the worst run company I've ever seen. He comes out with terrible earnings. You know what he says? You know what people are saying when they come out with terrible earnings? They say, we're just going to lever up the company more, take on more debt, and buy back stock. No, stock keeps sinking because he's talking about buying back stock with money he doesn't have anymore. And the market is figuring it out. So that stock's probably going to zero at some point. But my point is that even private sector people that are saying things that they never used to say, but maybe did. That's how outrageous it's getting. It's sort of like if you watch one of these like tiny home shows, or I'm buying a home show, if you got nothing to do with your life, and I watch it because I'm tired, I'll watch something that doesn't have any violence. And it used to be that, let's say two people were living together in the 1970s. They didn't go on TV and say, we're living together, we're buying a home, but we're not married. You just didn't do it. Now it's like, doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter how many tattoos you have on your face. Doesn't matter what you do, what you weigh. You just come out and say, I'm doing this, and I'm doing it, and I live with 3 guys together. I'm paraphrasing, I'm being hyperbole. But the same thing's happening in the private sector, where there's no shame of saying, Biden loves me. I make a donation. I'm getting what I want. You wouldn't even, why would you say it? But now people don't think, and the CNBC run a story like, that guy should be in jail. That's wrong. No one says anything about whatever people say. The vice president of the United States says, I basically slept my way with the mayor of San Francisco to get going in politics. The mayor of San Francisco, that guy Brown, says, yes, she did. And she's the vice president. Now, we've gone a long way from Nelson Rockefeller not being the president because he was divorced. I get it. I've been divorced. But now we're at the point where people just don't care because they realize the people of America don't seem to care what they say about anything because they're not paying attention.
Yeah. No, the country's in bad shape, and it's getting worse. And
it's certainly not morning. It's not morning in America. Can we all agree, Mike Pence, that it's not morning in America again? What are you talking about?
So what would you tell young people, since you are in the financial sector, what would you tell young people such as myself that are in the early 30s? I started saving quite a while ago. I don't want to go too in depth on, that we're going to put this out on the air, but
you've done the right thing. And
we talk about Roth IRAs, and, that's pretty safe for somebody that's.
No, Roth IRAs, I mean, the real trick is to get, if you're working for a company, just so you know, is put your money into 401k. And then when you retire before you're 62 in years when you don't make money, stuff it into a Roth IRA, then you never pay taxes at all. That's the real trick.
Wow. Good idea. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I did. So that way, when you turn 60, whatever, you're not ever going to pay taxes on it. And you can kind of be one step ahead of the federal government. If they try to change the law, just get your money out and so forth. But young people have a real problem because, I mean, the number one thing that people should be doing when they're young is to know something very specific that they can make money at. General knowledge is fine for, knowing Latin, knowing this. Specific knowledge is what makes money. Be
Talking
the
about
best,
trade schools.
be the best radio guy, be the best at what you want to do and make it specific, even within, say, if you're not going to college, even within, want to be a plumber, be very specific. Find a niche that you can actually put barriers around locally and get lots of business. Doesn't matter what it is. That's the way to get ahead. Find a niche where you have a barrier, either through everybody knows you, you're a low-cost provider, whatever it might be. I always tell people this one thing. A guy named Michael Porter made $1 zillion on one concept called Michael Porter's Five Forces. But it's very simple. Everybody should look up Michael Porter's Five Forces and stare at it and say, in my business, how does this work for me? And I tell this to young people. I actually print off Michael Porter's Five Forces one page and hand it to them and say, your life should be designed to make money around this. Like, think about it. What are the barriers to entry in your business? Like, how will you keep people out? What are the substitutes that you can get around? Think that through and you'll make money. In my life and business, I just give you one example. I knew that international business and the stock business had much wider margins and less people went there. I became an international salesman and trader, both at different times, and then both. That's how I ended up being the president of Morgan Keegan. The margins in international business, when I did a trade, weren't 6 cents per share like other people that doing business with Fidelity. Sometimes they were $1 a share. The margins were huge because people in Finland, people in Sweden. Now, that all was going to end, and I had to get management before it did. So it wasn't going to happen forever. But I went to where the margins were and made enough money and impressed enough people by being the biggest producer in a firm that they had to put me into management. So the same thing people have to think about. Don't just do what other people are doing. Where would the margins be for your business you want to be? What would the margins be that can be sustained and you can grow a business with high margins? It may not come to you exactly, but that's what you always have to be thinking about. For example, I'm an investor. I always look for companies that have been crushed because I don't have any more analysts. So I look at great people who make giant mistakes, find the mistakes and say, why did they make that mistake? Why is the stock down 50% from where they loved it? And find out that they're still right. That's when I buy it. That's all I ever do. I don't do anything else. And I know what I'm good at. I'm not really good at shorting stocks. Some people are. I'm not. I'm good at when something implodes that I've been ready for it to implode, looking at hundreds of things for 37 years, and then say, wait a second, that copper company should not be, it owns De Beers, it should not be trading at $11. And I buy a lot of it. So that's my thing. I've always been able to do that. And mostly my gig, just so you know, as I've retired a long time ago, is to always be in front of the institutional investor. The institutional investor will not outperform the market. The only way to do so is to say to yourself, where are they going to be next year? Where are they going to be in 3 months? And keep, I could show you everything on my desk. I have hundreds of things. And then say, okay, if they're going to, that's when they stop buying, I want to already be in. And that's where you get a real return. That's the only thing I could think to do to beat the market. I've beaten the market. If you look me up, that's how I do it. But I have one sustainable thing that I think I can always go back to, that type of business for me. And that's why you don't see me working.
Yeah. I want to go into the last two questions.
Yeah.
Speaker Mike Johnson, they're trying to get him out. The Democrats say they will rescue him. We just went through this with McCarthy a few months back.
Yeah.
It doesn't make the Republicans look good when they keep trying to push these people out. Again, I'm not saying that Speaker McCarthy was good. I'm not saying that Mike Johnson is good either. I'm saying that if you keep changing the guard every so many months, it makes you look inept as a party and, inequipped to even govern, for that matter. Not that they've been governed in general anyway. But regardless of that, is this another mistake that they just are going to keep this revolving door at Speaker going on? And now the election's coming up and it makes you look even more inept. And then the Democrats are bringing out the abortion issue, which they really run hard with and they win a lot with.
Yes. So two questions. One, the speakership, no one should be challenging the speaker. I don't think Speaker Johnson's the greatest guy. I never thought, I thought just like you, very slim majority in politics. We could talk theoretical stuff. We could talk practical stuff. Practical stuff is what Johnson's trying to do. He thinks there's going to be a vote on something. He's going to bring it up. He's going to get it done. He's going to push it through. Boom. He did what he thought he had to do. Then you have people who are only out for their own self-edification. Marjorie Greene and the rest of the kooks, right? I mean, Marjorie Greene, I don't know, her IQ can't be 100. And yet she's a very powerful person. People in Europe mention her all the time as like, what is she doing? Because I can't believe on TV they watch this lady talk and she has all this power. They're kind of remembering Newt Gingrich talked a lot. He was kind of smart and he said smart things and he got things really done. Exactly. Even if they remember Bill Clinton, if you don't like him or don't like him, he actually was really smart. His IQ was really high. Marjorie Greene is, Mrs. Bobart, really low. So they should just have those people shut up and not ignore them, but they won't. So I don't know if they'll make a change, but it's really bad. It's really bad. All these things breaking down what the great thing about our republic was set up for things to move slow. So, for example, whether it was a justice, you needed 60 votes, now you need 50. They're going to not fill the filibuster kind of work to slow things down. Even when I didn't like it, it still worked. All these things are really bad for Republican Party. Now, in the election of this year, does it matter for that congressman? No, I guess not. But it's really bad. Your second part, though, is about the abortion issue. I prayed all the time that Roe versus Wade would be overturned, and it was. It's left to the states. I think that Trump is right when he says these people talking about it maybe going too far for the election. He understands politics. Listen, I'm against abortion of all forms. And even for people listening who are not religious like me, I wish you'd listen to this one thing that I say all the time to people who are not religious. As long as we protect people at the really, really youngest age, and really, really old people, and people with Down syndrome, and people who have massive infirmities, quadriplegics, and we don't kill them, the less likely it is it comes for me, right? The more countries that there are have freedom, the more likely America's free. These are just things. And so you should be pro-life, even if you don't believe in Jesus, and you should believe in Jesus. So it's just easy to understand that if I'm here being protected but with my freedom of being alive and not being killed, let's protect everybody. Now, I do it for another reason too, because I'm religious and I'm an evangelical Christian. So that is like a big mistake that Republicans are making, that if this is why they tried it against Trump. If I get to be president, said, I don't know, the governor of Florida, I'm going to sign. Oh, Tim Scott was the worst. Of course, he's always the worst. Does he really have a girlfriend? That's a side issue. I don't know. I had to go find, like, if I wasn't married, you could find my girlfriend. If I had, you can find my wife. They're like right there. We have to go search for them. But Tim Scott
and he wants to be vice president, by the way, now.
Well, I don't think he can be. That's why he ran. That's why they ran. I love President Trump. I love him. I love him. And I want to be president. So I don't think he should pick him, because on that one issue, Tim Scott really screwed up. It is hurtful in the election cycle to say things that aren't going to happen. We are not going to have a national federal abortion ban. So move on to the national debt, right? So Trump's right about this, to say, listen, he said what I've said. It's been overturned. It's left to the states. If you like living in Mississippi, stay. If you want to move to Chicago and have a ninth term and bash the baby's brain, I'm against it. If I lived in, I tried to overturn it. If you want to bash a live baby's brains out in Massachusetts, okay. If you want to commit, infanticide, you people all going to hell, and I hope we can get you arrested. But that's why we have states doing different things. So Trump is right on this one, and these other people are wrong politically, because if you just left it to the states, it wouldn't be an issue for November. But now it is, because some Republicans trying to raise money, not get votes. Remember, you already have those votes. You're the governor, you're the senator from Florida. You have those pro-life votes. Now you're pissing off some people who normally wouldn't care. They're interested in my issues, the national debt, the this, the that, Social Security, whatever it is, national. Now you got them saying, you're an idiot. I'm not. And then they may be on the margin. You may lose enough to lose an election or to lose an electoral college, because they're ticked off at the Republican Party. So that's my answer to that, that it should have been left to the states, and
Yeah.
that's the best we can do. If we could do better, I would tell you. We can't do better than that right now.
SteveLaffey.com. Steve, it's always a pleasure to have you on.
God
And
bless you. You do a great job. I'm glad. You should keep doing this. We got to make you bigger in this, because you actually really do ask great questions, and you. So I love coming on with you, my
I
friend.
was actually supposed to have Marjorie Taylor Greene on here. I was working with her publicist. She put out a new book in December,
Yeah.
and it ended up fizzling out. It was too bad.
If you really don't want to run, tell her you're coming on with Steve Laffey and her. And then we'll have one blank screen after like 3 seconds when I start asking some questions. But you're much more polite. Um,
Anyways,
yeah, no booing anyway. Booing the president. What are we, 12? Like I was 12. Anyway, we go. Anyway, God bless you. I'll let you
all
go.
right,
We'll talk soon.
Steve.